All right, folks, the floor is yours. If you have any questions for our panellists, please feel free to jump forward. And they're all three were amazing. So, is there any? Do I see a question?
Yeah, I'll start it off. Nat mentioned something about energy being everything. What are some of the things that you guys do to sort of maintain a good energy and health and well-being?
I see you running.
Well, look, at the end of the day, in terms of my own, I guess, motivations and things that I do to try and keep me going. I've got grandkids now. They just, grandkids make life pretty exciting. So I still want to get down and, play soccer with them, ride bikes, whatever. So that sort of makes sure you want to be healthy to do those sorts of things. But in terms of motivation for the job, I was just saying to one of our guests here just before, I've always enjoyed that feel when one of your customers maybe buys money for an excavator and you go and see that out and it's digging dirt on a block, or you go out to a farmer's property and they've just put in a 1,000 megalitre ring tank or something like that, or you've seen someone build a commercial property from scratch. To actually go and physically touch and see these items keeps you really motivated.
Do you mean in terms of ourselves or our team?
What you do to keep your energy level up, whether it's, obviously motivation or health and well-being or, your routines,
Yeah, so I'm lucky to have a good wife and some understanding kids. And I've engineered my life, like my office is next to my room, my gym's next to my office. Like I've tried to cut down productivity anywhere I can. I wear the same clothes every day. It's either this uniform or a blue one, so I don't have decision fatigue. But I do, I guess, for me, I found I have a bit of a romance with commerce. So anything where I can find someone that's making money or saving money or doing something innovative, that's kind of the motivator in itself. In terms of teaming, there's lots of stuff out there you can do with cultural dynamics and helping team environments. And if you've got a good, healthy team that's not zapping so much energy because they need positive energy, that helps as well. So, maintaining my own mindset and attending, and I call it meme matching, to see where people are at and meet them where they're at. That helps conserve and save energy around energy management.
Yep.
No. Any other questions?
So I was going to say, I guess not so much a question, but I'd probably look for some expansion. In the tech industry, you hear about MVPs being minimum viable products. That's a lot of apps that get launched and all startups have minimum viable processes. I like that idea because processes are definitely my to-do list, is something that I haven't done on to. If anybody else, you mentioned process, actually I think all three of you mentioned processes at some stage. Can you speak a bit more to what a minimum viable process might look like, what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a governance nerd, and trying to think of a simple way to put it. You can measure variance, you can measure the level of compliance that's required. So there's tools out there, leadership tools you can use. I work with Six Sigma as a tool that I use. I'm a black belt in Six Sigma, as they call it. It's the nerdiest thing you could ever say. And so you can measure the levels of systems that are required, and when you're looking at that, you don't want to overcook the chook. And a lot of businesses can overcook the chook. They get into systems and then especially with ChatGPT now, that can make it 20 pages long real quick. A lot of people don't realise that ChatGPT has word count limits as well. So if you do have a high level of compliance requirement, Chat will condense it. So there's all those sorts of things. So for me, it's just about trying to work out what outcome we're chasing and reverse engineer it from there.
We have a lot of systems and processes, and we actually have the most amazing sales support process that actually just keeps everything being super proactive. Every single step of our sales process is really proactive, but you've just got to find a system that works for you. So we use Trello and then all of our software quite a lot as well. And all of our software has different things, like our property management software has different ways of doing things to how our sales software does. But I'm all just about being proactive and keeping on top of it, and having some parts of our business have much more involved systems, like our sales support system is really involved. But then there's other parts of our business that have a bit more flowier. Very big on making sure, especially when you've got new team members, that they know what they've got to do and where they've got to be and how much time things should be taking to start with. And then that really helps set good habits, I found, for later on.
I'm probably the last bloke that you should be talking to about processes. I'm more of a freelance sort of individual. It's just lucky I ended up in the banking industry where it has such rigid processes and systems and where you have to actually follow those processes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been successful.
You know what, as you know, many years ago, I was in the finance industry. That's where my love of processes and systems and numbers comes from as well.
Obviously, Trent, there's a lot of big business happening at the moment, a lot of big infrastructure and that sort of thing. How do small businesses sort of dovetail into that and work off the back of those big businesses?
Yeah, there's many ways. I've got one story I can share that's pretty fresh, I found really interesting. So I was down at the Melbourne Manufacturing Week 2 weeks ago, and we were lucky enough to go on a delegation tour to meet a company called Zenith Group, and they're a big defence bid contractor, and they're actually built up by a heap of small SME businesses that have partnered together. And I could kind of get the vibe that it was a kind of a marketing ploy. So I started pressing the lead person that was taking us around and said, how's this structure? And he dodged the question 2 or 3 times, and I was doing my investigative reporting. So this is a great story. So these guys actually just did an MOU. They got 4 small businesses together. They did a memorandum of understanding. They worked out their marketing, who's going to do what, how they're going to decide who's going to be the bid lead, and they share all of their leads when they're chasing bid type work. Now those guys are going straight after multinational defence contracts. They're not focused on just the ADF, and they're getting some great success. And I was pretty impressed by their businesses and how they were able to work together, do a kind of a Venn diagram of who does what, and sell their value propositions. So that's a more recent, surprising one that I found. And we're hoping to work with some of the regional players up here to mimic the same type of behaviour. So that's one example of something that people don't really talk about, you know.
That's good. No, I think it's more your domain, Trent.
Well, I've got one for you, Mick. Obviously, interest rates at the moment, the Reserve Bank have cut them. How does the interest rate fluctuations affect small business?
Well, look, obviously, small business likes to see lower interest rates. I mean, that everyone wants lower interest rates, right? So, but at the end of the day, we actually grew our business, our lending business, in a higher interest rate environment than we did when the interest rates were low. Because at the end of the day, when small business is active, it's about they've got goals and targets and things that they want to achieve. Now, obviously, there's concerns around the interest rates. There's no worries about that. But at the end of the day, if they're confident, they've done their homework, and they know that the decisions they're going to make is going to increase their cash flow, they just do it. And the interest rate, and to be brutally honest, unless you're, a lot of the small businesses in Central Queensland probably have a debt level under $500,000 in terms of a business debt level. So whether the interest rate's 4% or the interest rate's 7%, there's not a significant increase in the repayments but if it's $5 million and the interest rates are 4% and $7 million, that's a different story. I focus mainly on the small business side of things, and I can honestly say interest rates have never been really a factor in my lending life in terms of whether a small business does business or not.
I think that it can affect people's spending habits, though, as in our clients. That's sort of, something that to be mindful of.
Yeah, so medium-sized businesses, obviously debt levels 4 million plus, interest rates are a big concern. And it can change the pace at which they'll grow or shrink. Yep. Interest rates, if they continue to go up, previous risk factors that they've allowed for in their investment strategy would move and change. So if they've made a decision made on 4% and all of a sudden they're at 7% on a risky move, that changes the landscape. Some of the guys I work with too, they're working on 15-year horizons. So if they're building something, asset life's at 15 years, and they're doing equipment finance at 5 years, So they try to roll it over. So there's a lot of, interest rates are a primary concern for medium-sized enterprise that are trying to compete with large multinational players who are capped out,
And I guess, Nat, too, when small business starts out, it's small, but when it starts to grow and needs a roof over its head, any advice to small businesses about how to get the leasing and how to get a business bricks and mortar type thing?
Commercial property management is Troy's department. He manages actually a lot of commercial properties that people probably don't realise. We do actually a lot more commercial than people know. And part of the challenge here is we don't actually have a lot of vacant shops or office space, or even industrial space. There's not all that much vacant either. So if you find something that's going to be suitable, you just kind of have to jump on it and make sure you put your best foot forward. Landlords do like to know that you've thought through what you're doing. They will actually often ask for a business plan and things like that. It's more finding availability that's the problem. We do have a housing shortage, but commercial's not far behind. With buying a commercial property, it's once again, I was just talking to an investor this morning who was complaining that there's only a few properties on the market. I'm like, well, we don't have that big a main street, so not everything's for sale, and so there's only going to be a few, And so once again, if you see something you like, and because we're so close to the ocean, a lot of the CBD properties are really quite expensive. Even when you look at the return, there's still quite a lot if you're looking in the CBD. Your industrial and office space is a little bit different, but still, our capital growth's huge here, so you've just got to be prepared to pony up the money. Seeing lots of people looking at the fringe of the CBD and suiting a lot of people, like smaller businesses, even getting some that are wanting to run a business downstairs, live upstairs, that kind of thing as well. But you've just kind of got to take whatever you can get that's somewhat suitable. Did you agree? Yeah.
The only thing I would add, and sorry, Talia, for banging on the council, but when you're trying to grow a business, you have to remember the regulators are not working with you. They will tell you they will, but there's a big book and you have to go check it out.
Yeah.
So trying to work at a business at home, I see it all the time. Council comes in and makes it a nightmare, or a state regulator comes in and makes it a nightmare. So trying to get bricks and mortar in terms of that question is make sure that you know what your material use is going to be of that site. Double check that site is available. Decide if you're going to ask the council if it is compliant or not. And Livingston's actually known for being an overly compliant mentality shire. There's a lot of southern investors that just do not invest in this space. I'm talking industrial investors, and this is not an industrial hub. If you're looking at your options in regional Queensland, you would be in Gladstone or in Mackay over Rocky. Even Emerald has a really good bid out there. So that's some of the constraints.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm actually going to say a few words about business growth. I'm leaving that one alone. The business with business growth, getting back to what Trent was saying, from my experience in the finance game, it can be a business killer. A lot of businesses fail to plan and fail to sit down with their bank managers or their finance brokers, whoever their go-to person is, to discuss their next plans for expansion and growth. The problem being is if you implement a change in your business, it makes your sales grow by, say, if it's all exponential, but if I had a business that was already turning over 2 million and then the next year I'm going to be generating 4 million. How do I fuel that growth? So sales are a part of it, but you need cash and you need debt. But you've got to, be very careful that the debt load you take on board is manageable. And as quickly as your cash can come, your cash can disappear. So in terms of business growth, the only thing I'll say in that space is that you've got to plan it, because it can burn you. And I've seen it happen to many clients over the years.
Yeah, growth can hurt.
Any more questions?
How important, all three of you have mentioned that you've been in partnerships through your business club. How important is it to have someone, or is it more important to have someone with a shared vision or a diverse skill set?
This is getting tricky.
Feel free to answer how you like. I'm just getting pretty probably good to
Go first.
You need both. I don't know, that's what I think. Troy and I would not be able to work so closely together if we weren't going in the same direction. Sometimes one of us might have a slightly different idea or a little bit of a limiting belief around something, or something will pop up, but generally we're going in the same direction, and it's really support each other's vision. But we do also have different skill sets, which helps as well. Yeah, and we're able to really just see things differently with each other. You do see a lot of partnerships that do struggle and that do fail, and you've got to it's so important you have the right people. But that's different for everybody, I think. Yeah.
This is a great question. I love this question. So when we first started, every year the bank would have a conference, and you'd go to one of these conferences, and partnerships are very common at that stage, but then you'd get to go next year and you go, where's Jeff? Oh, he's a bastard. Oh, we kicked him out and all that. And where's Rebecca? Well, no, we didn't get on, or hey, no, well, she just left because she didn't like the work and all that sort of stuff. What we found, so when Matt and I first met, we did not know each other. We were complete strangers. But it gets back to that partnership agreement, and it gets back to defined roles. So when we came on board, we found that we liked talking to each other, which is a good start. But when we first started in business together, we knew how our business background was going to work because it was there in black and white. Took away any disagreement. That's, if we're working together, that's how we're going to operate. And on the other side of this, and then in our business, we had defined roles. Matt did most of the financial and bookwork type stuff, and I drove the marketing, sales, and just the day-to-day operations of the business. Now, why that was important was when there was decisions to be made, if it was in the sales, marketing, or day-to-day operations of the field, I made the decision. If it was in finance or in relation to our debt levels and things like that, Matt made the decision. The only other thing I will say in that space is that on the 3 or 4 occasions where we didn't agree, we actually sat down. Now, if you're in a 50-50% partnership, someone's going to have to give. And eventually, after we talk things through, we laid it all on the table. Sometimes we do a strengths and weakness analysis or something like that. But eventually, one of us did change our mind in those 3 or 4 times when that did arise. But by having those fixed roles within the business, it eliminated 99% of the issues there because it was in black and white who was going to decide what.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's all about trusting the other person to do their job and having very defined roles. I'll actually give you an example. My parents were self-employed for a long time. They tried to have defined roles, but they kind of didn't execute it very well. And they didn't have big fights, but they had little nibbles, we'll call it, all the time, like constantly. So there was no way we were doing that. We knew we had to have a better model to make it work.
Yeah, so now I've had time to think about it. So you have to foster trust, and that comes via governance with partnership agreements, constitutions, all those sorts of things. But to have a long-term, highly productive partnership is very different to short-term and unproductive, high emotion. So it's a challenging balance, and you guys have done a really good job with what yous are doing, having multiple people at different stages of their life. Some people have got young kids and they're in their bootstrap phase and they're willing to go for 7 years and to look back and go, I didn't get to see my kids grow up. Others are semi-retired and they don't want to miss out on their grandkids. And those two people coming together in a partnership is complex. So in terms of getting the partnership right, there are tools like systems and stuff like that, but it's about fostering the conditions for trust. I would say that's probably the key thing. And about delegation of authority, that helps too if you've got not too many controls so people can operate and make their entrepreneurial decisions. And in terms of differing skill sets, that's a complex one. You don't want two people that think exactly the same because they end up in what they call black box thinking, where you're doing the same thing and you both agree and it's a great idea and there's no conflict. That has problems too. I'm in a 50-50 partnership at All Industries. We got 50, 60 something staff. My business partner is a boilermaker, industrial designer. Like I told you what he's doing for his spare time. I'm the complete opposite. So, you know, trying to tap into that diversity is another layer of tricks. And it's not so much about role delegation for us, it's about compromising and listening and trying to attend to the other person's point of view. And that takes years to get that right.
I think that's a great way to finish on a positive note, which is nice. First things first, we've got our lucky door prize, which Mick was running around. Does that make you ineligible now, or?
Who wants to draw? We'll let Jeff draw. No, we won't. We'll let somebody in the panel draw.
Go now.
Yeah.
So up for grabs is the $100 voucher.
Did you just draw yourself?
No, I didn't. Yeah, almost my contest.
That was ESP Energy Works.
Thank you.